Hello, I'm Marlene Saeed. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, flights between India and China are back as Donald Trump's tariffs bite. Will trade tensions with the United States push Beijing and New Delhi closer? And can the two longtime rivals really become partners? It's drawing global interest but stirring backlash at home. China's new visa scheme aims to attract top tech talent. But what is behind the K visa and how could it impact the Chinese job market? From car production to grocery delivery, cyber attacks are disrupting businesses worldwide. So how high is the cost of digital insecurity? And can companies afford not to protect themselves? Their relationship has long been defined by rivalry, competing ambitions, and a disputed border. Now, India and China are resuming direct flights after 5 years of suspension, a symbolic sign of thawing ties between the two Asian giants. But Donald Trump's tariffs and a shifting trade landscape could push them even closer together. For China, it is about offsetting the tariff pressure and expanding trade links. For India, it is a chance to attract investment even as it holds on to its goal of becoming an alternative manufacturing hub to Beijing. At stake is the balance of global supply chains and economic influence. So, could Beijing's and New Delhi's shared economic interests override decades of rivalry? And if it does, how might it rewrite global trade? Here's how the story is unfolding. Direct flights between Indian and Chinese cities are set to resume later in October after they were suspended during the COVID-19 pandemic. Beijing and New Delhi froze diplomatic ties following military confrontations along the border areas in 2020. And there are other small but significant signs that both sides may be ready to turn the page. Beijing is allowing in Indian pilgrims, and India has restarted issuing tourist visas to Chinese nationals. New Delhi has also lifted its ban on popular Chinese apps. In his first visit to China in 7 years, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the Shanghai Cooperation Organization last month, where the two agreed that their countries are development partners, not rivals. We're joined now by Stephen Okin, the CEO and founder of APAC Advisors, a sustainability and public affairs consultancy. He's also the former Deputy General Counsel in the U.S. Department of Transportation. He joins us now from Singapore. Stephen, good to see you on the program. So we have India and China resuming direct flights, reopening border trade posts, and even restarting religious pilgrimages. How significant are these steps? Are they a sign of genuine warming between these two countries?
They're definitely a warming, but these steps are tactical. They're the beginning of maybe what will be transformational, but we don't know yet if the India-China relationship is going to get to beyond having a functional coexistence, or if it will go further than that. I mean, look, the U.S. is still the major player economically for India, and it is for China as well. And you're not going to replace that overnight. India has a trade surplus with the United States of $37.7 billion. They have to sell to the U.S. market. They have to remain close to the U.S. market. China is not a replacement for that. So while everyone is hedging against the United States because of what Donald Trump is doing and what he's doing with his America First trade policy, and you see India and China taking these first tactical steps, we don't yet know if it's going to be transformational.
So, Stephen, in this dynamic, who needs who more?
Well, they all need each other, and that's why we're in such an unknown period. Look, India needs China's imports. India needs to import from China for its manufacturing because it isn't the manufacturing powerhouse it wants to be. But India has to export to the United States. It cannot export to China. China doesn't have the domestic market that is going to consume those products that India makes. So India needs to import from China, needs to export to the United States. And that is why you aren't going to see a rewriting of all of the rules all of a sudden, because the economics that underpin the relationships between the three countries hasn't changed. And there is still the deep suspicion that India has of China. Now, the U.S. is trying to say we can have a different view. We are going to address the trade deficit we have with India, and we're going to protect the U.S. workers by slamming India with all of these H-1B fees that were never there before, which is really going to hit Indian citizens. But at the same time, we believe we can have that military relationship, that military alliance with India being part of the Quad to counter China and their aggression in the Indo-Pacific. So it's really complicated between the three countries. You just can't look at what's happening between India and China. But no question that India has to look at China differently because the U.S. now looks at India differently under Donald Trump in his second term, even then Donald Trump looked at India in his first term.
Stephen, President Trump's tariffs are meant to bring U.S. manufacturing back home and pressure Beijing. But could these policies be actually having the opposite effect by nudging India and China closer together economically?
There might be some hedging against the United States, but there's only so much that they can do. Look, China has so much excess capacity because of how its economy has been structured under the Communist Party, how much state subsidies have gone to manufacturing. They manufacture way more than they need. They need to export those, automobiles, those electric vehicles, everything else that they manufacture. And if they lose that to the U.S. market, they have to export it somewhere else. Well, you know what? India doesn't want China dumping its excess capacity into its country any more than the United States did. India does not want its manufacturing base to be hollowed out by China. And so India is going to protect its market from China, the same as the United States is protecting its market from China because of all that unfair competition. That doesn't go away. So you are going to see some, closening of India and China as a result of Donald Trump. But at the same time, India is going to put India first. It is not going to say we're just going to trade the United States for China from an economic perspective, a trade perspective, an investment perspective, because there's no trade to make. Donald Trump is right when he says he has all the cards economically. In the short term, he does. And it's why these countries so far, for the most part, have accepted the tariffs. They haven't put countervailing tariffs on and retaliated against the United States, as some people expected. And so, yes, India and China will get a bit closer together, but it's not that they have an option with regards to the United States either.
If India and China do find more common ground, what does that mean for global trade and supply chains? Are we starting to see early signs of a new Asian trade order, one less shaped by Washington?
That's certainly what we're looking to see if that happens. Are we going to see, look, the global rules-based trading system that took about 80 years to build has been shattered by Donald Trump. All the principles of most favored nation, not weaponizing tariffs, that's gone. And so now the question becomes, what replaces that? Now, China has been just as guilty in some ways as the United States is now of weaponizing its economy when it doesn't like a policy position another government has taken. It's done it against the Philippines. It's done it against South Korea. It does it against Australia. So we don't want to see a global rules-based system that's going to be in that format from what China has done. And we don't want to see a global rules-based system when it's just bilateral and not multilateral, which is where the United States heads under America First trade policy. So what is going to replace it? We just don't know. India and China will be more a part of it than they were before, but how much and what role the United States is going to play, how long Donald Trump is going to keep these policies in, what happens when tariffs really start to bite in the United States, when inflation hits, when it hits jobs, which we're starting to see. So we're just in a period of hyper volatility and uncertainty as we try and figure all of this out.
Stephen, really good to get your thoughts. Stephen Okin, CEO and founder of APAC Advisors, joining us there from Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let's look at how India is trying to counter the blow from the exceptionally high U.S. trade tariffs. The nation has cut consumption tax by at least 10 percentage points on nearly 175 products, ranging from phones to hybrid cars. The government hopes it will increase consumer spending. Ume Kulsum Sharif reports.
Buying electronic goods and essentials has become cheaper in India. A recent reduction in the goods and services tax aims to boost spending as millions of Indians prepare for a major festival. The sweeping cuts are part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's major overhaul of India's complex GST structure.
It's a good move from Mr. Modi because it's going to help the Indian economy because the sale is going to go up.
The new goods and services tax of 5 and 18% kicked in on September 22nd. Dozens of life-saving drugs are exempt from tax, and so are insurance premiums. Luxury goods and tobacco-related products face a 40% consumer tax. Analysts say, while the move aims at boosting demand, it may strain public finances.
The way they've done it is that the lower middle class will benefit, the upper middle class may actually lose. Yes, it can put a little bit more purchasing power in the hands of particularly the lower middle class, but whether that will translate into a demand growth or will it translate into a further increase in savings, we will find out only with time.
Modi's tax relief measures come as India faces rising tensions with the US over trade tariffs. President Donald Trump has imposed levies of up to 50% on Indian imports. But the GST reduction is not likely to help some sectors that have already been hit hard in the past few months.
We are suffering losses. Our entire business is with the US. We have already laid off 30% of our staff. If the situation does not improve, we will lay off another 20%. If there is no reduction in tariffs, then we will fire more workers after the Diwali festival in October.
While some are celebrating the GST cuts, many others, like Renu Bhavne, are not. The mother of three has been selling garments in the capital for 20 years. In the recent past, sales have dropped drastically, but prices of essentials have spiked.
We've been struggling with price rise and inflation for the last few years. Nothing is cheap. The government keeps increasing prices. They announced that they're reducing the goods and services tax, but we're yet to benefit from it.
More than 8 years after Modi introduced the GST, a revised and simplified structure now hopes to boost consumption across India. Ume Kulsum Sharif, Al Jazeera, for Counting the Cost.
Now, as President Donald Trump tightens visa rules, China is opening its doors to top global talents. A new type of visa aimed at attracting graduates in science, technology, engineering and mathematics, or STEM, has just come into effect. This is Beijing is trying to gain an edge in its rivalry in the technology sector with the US. The Chinese government touts the K visa as a boon for national development. But many Chinese people are not convinced, and the move is already sparking debate on social media. Trending hashtags related to the visa have reached around 500 million views in just 2 days. Many people have raised concerns about the impact on the job market, with youth unemployment at around 19% in August. Nearly half of Chinese graduates across all levels of higher education between 2012 and 2022 hold STEM degrees, amounting to a talent pool of around 24 million people. So what is the K visa? China's newly introduced scheme aims to attract young foreign professionals from science and technology fields. And unlike existing visas, it doesn't require sponsorship by an employer. But many details about the visa are uncertain, including duration of stay, requirements related to age, qualification and work experience. What's also unclear is if the K visa could lead to a Chinese citizenship like the American H-1B visa for professionals. China's initiative comes as the US announced a $100,000 charge on its H-1B visas for highly skilled workers last month. Andy Mock is a senior research fellow at the Center for China and Globalization, a think tank specializing in Chinese affairs. He joins us from Beijing. Andy, good to have you on the program. So why now? What's behind the timing of the launch of this visa?
First of all, I think the most important reason for launching this K visa program is that this is part of China's long-term strategy to realize the Chinese dream, the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. And technology is a core part of this. So while there are 1.4 billion people in China, very talented, hardworking people, there are many, many more that are outside of China, especially in the STEM field, so science, technology, engineering, and management. So I think China recognizes very rightly so that attracting these people, and these are young people, to come to China will provide a positive boost to realizing China's long-term vision.
Andy, but in terms of the timing, is China trying to capitalize on the US raising H-1B visa fees?
I'm not sure that it is, Malene. Again, China, everyone talks about China things in decades. And I think that is certainly true. But I think an important corollary to that is China really is not very reactive, and especially not reactive to the news cycle. So I'm not so sure that this is in response to that. Now, of course, China may get some PR media benefit from the timing of this, but I would be very skeptical that this is a motivation for doing this. And I think, this is certainly part of a larger strategic plan.
Andy, is this likely to create more job opportunities or put pressure on China's own highly skilled workers?
Well, it might. And I think that's, if we looked, I'm sure we could find instances of this happening. But at the same time, and these are not mutually exclusive, bringing in outside talent may also raise the competitiveness of the local talent pool. So again, one way to bring out the best in people is to make things a competition, a healthy, fair competition. So I think there's this aspect of it that could be an enormous positive. The other is we look to Silicon Valley. One of the deepest lessons there is that immigrants ended up making a lot of technology breakthroughs that not only launched new companies, but entire new industries that ended up employing millions and millions of people. So I think, again, given the size of the Chinese market, the dynamism of the innovation there, that adding talented people from all around the world will only accelerate that and may actually end up creating far more jobs than those that have some concern or anxiety that jobs may be lost, fear.
There has been, though, noticeable backlash online with voices warning that it will now open the door wider to foreign residents, and this could have endless consequences. What is driving that kind of reaction? Is it the economic anxiety that we've talked about, or is it nationalism, or is it something else?
Well, Maylene, I think that's a great question. I mean, my, description of it might be that it may be a little bit more of a knee-jerk reaction. And of course, we know that online negative comments certainly attract greater attention, greater virality. And again, I want to be clear here that these concerns or anxieties are not entirely unfounded. But if we look at the big picture, I think that this actually could be an enormous positive. It might create new jobs, entirely new industries, raise the overall standard of the talent pool in China. So I think that's very important. The other very interesting dynamic here is that talent, especially STEM talent, creates its own demand. The other thing I want to add, too, is that we should not only look at this through the lens of developed countries like the United States and Western Europe, but when we look at the global South, there are many, many talented, highly trained, ambitious people that are looking for a growth opportunity. And China may be the perfect growth opportunity for them. And if they come, again, partner with local Chinese, join a Chinese startup, that this, again, could be an enormous force multiplier, not just for China, but for the world.
Andy, so interesting to get your insight into this topic. Andy Mock, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malik.
They're crippling factories, emptying store shelves and costing companies billions of dollars. Cyber attacks are increasingly becoming an economic problem. In the UK, a cyber attack forced Jaguar Land Rover to halt production, while a ransomware hit on a major Japanese beer maker stopped operations for weeks. It's all part of a growing wave of digital assaults, which cost the global economy an estimated $9.5 trillion last year. From factories and supply chains to retail and healthcare, no sector is immune. We will discuss that with our guests shortly. But first, this report from Malahabe Motsepe.
A phased restart more than a month after Britain's biggest car maker, Jaguar Land Rover, shut due to a massive and crippling cyber attack. The luxury car maker has been struggling to get its systems up and running after a hack at the end of August. It forced the JLR to shut down factories and retail operations around the world.
The difficulty with cyber security over traditional security is it's very, very possible to cover your traces. People use VPNs, people bounce off servers in random countries that may have different attitudes to law enforcement and to giving up information about who is using those servers.
Jaguar Land Rover, owned by India's Tata Motors, employs 33,000 people at 3 factories in Britain. They together produce about 1,000 cars per day. But the cyber attack has brought in a challenging quarter for the car maker, with sales dropping sharply. The halt in production has also disrupted a pyramid of supply chains, leaving thousands more affected.
We're seeing more of these kind of incidents. The government knows that this is something we need to support British businesses to deal with.
From car factories, retail stores to airports, cyber attacks are increasingly disrupting daily life across the world. Last month, airports in Brussels, Berlin and London faced major disruptions to check-in services, leaving travelers stranded. Experts warn global businesses are increasingly vulnerable in sophisticated and more frequent attacks.
This is the modern day bank heist. So instead of knocking off a bank, they're now knocking over a company, and the methodology is broadly the same that they use. So what they'll do is they'll attack an organization. They will attempt to exfiltrate some data, steal some data off them. Then they'll place some kind of ransomware technology on the network, render the system useless, and then force the organization in question to the table in terms of negotiating for the release of their systems.
A recent IBM report says the average cost of a data breach has risen by 10% since the pandemic, from 4.4 million to nearly 5 million in 2023. The string of attacks is forcing businesses and governments to not just control, but brace for future attacks. Malahabe Motsepe, Al Jazeera, for Counting the Cost.
Karim Lamouri is a digital transformation and cybersecurity specialist. He is also co-founder and president of Hackers Without Borders. He joins us from Geneva. Karim, many thanks for joining the program. Let's start with the Land Rover case. What does this attack tell us about how vulnerable even the most established and well-resourced manufacturers are to cyber threats today?
Even giants are falling. Industrial power, even military power, no longer protects against digital fragility. As we can see, a huge colossus like JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, it's a loss of 2 million per day, 6 weeks stop. So if we do the calculations around globally, mostly 100 million pound of loss. So it's tell us a lot about how fragile is our society today, including companies, of course.
And just to be clear, when it comes to the Jaguar Land Rover case, given the scale of production that has halted, are there even hidden costs that go far beyond the initial damage that we're not aware about?
Definitely, a cyber attack doesn't just destroy servers. It destroys, it kills, it erodes trust, reputation, and continuity. So at the same time, it creates unemployment, and paradoxically, it can create employment because of the lack of security. So yes, it's like a tsunami. A lot of people are affected, and as well, we can talk about the very little told subject, like the human stress and the ambient fear. There is a huge impact on people inside the company and a little less outside the company. I mean, from the people. Are you confident by buying back a new Jaguar or Land Rover? People can have this acceptable question on the table because it's a security matter. And when you create a car, you are creating a security object. So yeah, everything is related.
Karim, what is it about industrial and manufacturing firms especially that makes them so vulnerable to cyber attacks?
I think that because of the dependence of the supply chain, you have a lot of people working outside the company. So you have many doors that leads you directly to this company. So if you are related to cloud servers, cloud softwares, subcontractors, there is much more doors than only a small SMB, a small company that do everything inside the house.
So give us a sense then, Karim, of how costly cyber attacks are, not just for businesses, but the wider, broader economy. And does it make more sense to work on prevention rather than the cost of recovery?
Definitely. The human factor is often overlooked. We need to focus on raising awareness, and that starts, from my point of view, from school. The digital assets are making our world every day more fragile and maybe dangerous if you are not aware of how it is functioning and turning. So yes, we need to much more work on awareness, and it starts from the playground.
Karim, really good to talk to you. Karim Lamouri, Digital Transformation and Cybersecurity Specialist, joining us there from Geneva.
You're welcome.
And that is our show for this week. Do get in touch with us on X. I'm at Marlene Saeed. Use the hashtag AJCTC when you do, or you can drop us an email. countingthecost@aljazeera.net is our address. And there's more for you online at aljazeera.com/CTC, which will take you straight to our page, which has individual reports, links, entire episodes for you to catch up on. That's it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Marlene Saeed. From the whole team, thanks for joining us. The news on Al Jazeera coming up next.